Hey guys, what's going on? It's 12/7/2014. Want to talk today about the conclusion of the predictive Georgia Guidestones video that I did on in September. And you know, I was going back and looking at that video, and one of the most glaring things that I picked up immediately is I reinforced and repeated myself that it was a very, very, very important video about the cube, how the cube was broken, and the symbols in that cube. And one of the things that I mentioned was that 2014, the remainder of 2014 was going to be very big, it was going to be very important, and that the Chinese were going to have a lot to do with the final push against the Illuminati. And I said specifically that China is stronger than you think they are. That's what the Illuminati were saying in the cube. And that China is going to process this last push against the Illuminati in a way that's going to help humanity. China's outlook is to help humanity, not just defeat the Illuminati, but also help humanity in the process and after that. And I said that the cube, how the Illuminati were interpreting it, that they were losing the battle to the Chinese, and that would become evident again into 2014, and that's where we are right now. Also, the breaking of the cube, I said, was very symbolic, how the Illuminati would never take a symbol that they're articulating or presenting and break it. And as I go through and interpret what has happened since then, you're going to see exactly how that correlates perfectly with what has happened. And these last couple things that have happened in the last month or so are very, very, very important, and they're huge, very big things. And I also said in that first video back in September that this is a good video. The Illuminati's presentation of the cube and what they mean by it is very good for humanity. And I also said vehemently, I said, don't let anybody else on the internet tell you it's something bad, because it's not. And lo and behold, we go a couple months from late September when the first video was done, and that's pretty much how it played out. And it's funny because there's always the knee-jerk emotional responders on YouTube and the internet, always want to play things out for the worst possible scenario, and want to instill fear in people. And that's really not what this has ended up to be. And you guys that have been watching me know that I'm not into the negative. I'm always into the positive, trying to keep a light burning on the on YouTube or the internet or wherever this video is being posted. But let's get into it because it's hugely important. Again, that video was released on 9/28/2014. I said it was very important, and the Illuminati are basically saying that the Chinese are going to process this last push. And I also said, very importantly, and I said that there are Christ energy beings that are going to start to present themselves to help the global situation with the Chinese. And I said there are representatives now that are black, white, Persian, and Asian. And I said their presence, their energies are going to start being felt on this planet for a beneficial purpose. Okay, so we go forward in time after the end of September, we get into October, and on 10/18/2014, the Dragon ambassador came out on the internet and said that the Fed was covertly owned by the Chinese. Jim Willie soon after that said that the Fed, majority stake in the Fed, was owned by the Chinese. I published that on Disinfowars. I thought that was a very positive note. And I think that these two people are reasonable and good sources of intel and information. Also, the most important factor was that Cobra on early November said that his sources were telling him that on between the 17th and 19th of October that there were contracts that were signed that were extremely beneficial to humanity. Now, the intel that I got specifically, and specifically on that date, was on the 5th of October, which I shared with the members of Disinfowars. I got intel that there were contracts being signed between the United States and China, that China was not forcing the Illuminati to sign the contracts, but China had the upper hand I also stated that in the force majeure video that I released after the Georgia Guidestone videos. And my intel today, after the smoke is cleared, is saying that there were huge amounts of the United States that were turned over to the Chinese on that date as a result of the force majeure or the financial instruments collapse of September 30th. So, what does that mean? Well, China now owns a majority stock of the United States. And this is what I mean by that. They own a majority of the ports. They own a majority of the commercial businesses or commercial space. They own a majority of the raw land. They own a majority of the BLM land. They own a majority of the airports. They own a majority of, for example, like the JP Morgan headquarters that has been publicized. Their cumulative total, dollar for dollar, percentage-wise of ownership of the United States is more than the Illuminati WASP network. China owns a majority stake in the United States. And you can see that very clearly because a couple weeks ago, there were huge, enormous visa restrictions that were allocated to Chinese nationals. I believe the restriction before was a year or 2 years. Now Chinese nationals can get a work visa in this country for how many years? 10 years. And that is proof in the pudding. That is exactly why they are allowing these visa restrictions to be increased, to allow the Chinese nationals to come over here and take care of the newly acquired assets that the Chinese acquired from the force majeure that happened on September 30th. That's one way that the Chinese have taken over more of the Illuminati stronghold, as predicted in the cube, as I interpreted. Number two, there is a decoupling of the gold price right now. The gold price, the COMEX price, is a non-existent price in the wholesale acquisition number for tonnage if you want tonnage anywhere in the world. There's no such thing as the COMEX price. Jim Willie's talked about this. Rob Kirby has talked about this. I think also that, who was the other guy that talked about this? Andy Hoffman talked about this. The wholesale price has decoupled from the COMEX price. Again, I said China, according to the cube, my delineation, was going to process the conclusion to the Illuminati. And when you have a gold price that is decoupled from the COMEX price, and that price is being actively pushed by the Chinese in the Shanghai market, well, the Chinese have severed the COMEX gold price, period. And that is huge because that one day will transfer into the retail price, and I even estimate prior to that the whole world's going to change before that even happens. They're going to set a gold standard and just bump the price up, which is the price is what it is right now. The ounce price is double COMEX, and China's putting their foot down to make that a reality. Also, another thing that's very important, if anybody has noticed what has happened to the price of oil. After the beginning of October, oil has gone from, what, $102 a barrel down to $65 a barrel. And again, I said in the original cube video, I said there's going to be participation from different races. We've already seen the Chinese that I've talked about. Now I'm talking about the Persians, Saudi Arabians, the Middle Eastern constituency. And they are being allowed to pump oil at whatever cost they want to sell it for. There is no more OPEC. OPEC does not exist anymore. The Saudis are getting together with the Chinese and the Russians and basically told the Americans, screw you, screw your OPEC manipulated oil price because the Londoners own OPEC. OPEC is owned and prices are set by Londoners. Now that is not the case. The price, because it's being lowered, is being set by Middle Eastern natives. Saudi Arabia is setting their own oil price. UAE is setting their own oil price. They're all setting their own oil price, and it's a lot lower than the faulty OPEC old price. And that is a breakthrough because without the military backing of the Chinese and the Russians, the Middle Easterns would not be able to set that oil price where they want to set it at right now. And that is destroying all the derivative contracts, all the financial instrument contracts that are associated with American oil production. So we've got big, huge things, guys. These are, and I think Jim Willie said it the best, these are paradigm shifting times. And I said it back in the cube video. I said it basically word for what it has happened and developed into. And these are the markers, these are the beacons that will continue to develop as we move through the end of this year, beginning of 2015. And I expect these instances, which I've just discussed, to really push forward the new era and the new norms. The new norms. It's very important because there's a lot of people out there that talk about a collapse, calamity, destruction. No. Don't use those words. Because they're inaccurate. What it is it's a change, it's a metamorphosis into a new system, a more equitable system. If gasoline goes down to $1.99 in America, is the consumer going to be hurt? No, the consumer's going to love it. Who's going to be hurt are the Illuminati schmucks who have rigged the price of oil since the beginning of OPEC. When gold doubles in price and it becomes a realistic thing, what is it going to do? It's not going to hurt the average individual. Who's it going to hurt? The Illuminati banking system and their dollar reserve currency status. So all of these things are playing out pretty much how the Georgia Guidestones cube was interpreted. And I think it's important. The reason why I go back and do this from time to time, guys, is there's so much information on the internet that it's difficult to stay focused on what people said, how their predictions turned out, what the past was, in order to let you know how accurate that individual was. And that's why I take the time in doing this. And there's a lot of BS on the net, man. There's so many people. I shake my head every day. Every day I shake my head. But I'm like, what am I going to do? Point out their wrongness? No, I just point out where I'm correct. And, you know, Jim Willie does it all the time. Webbot does it all the time. Keiser does it all the time. And I think it's very relative that everybody stays focused on who is incorrect, who is not incorrect. Because we're all trying to figure out right now collectively, guys, what is the truth? What do we need to do based on the truths that we're agreeing upon? And what kind of world do we want to develop? So, yeah, that's where it is. So yeah, the Chinese are the bulldozers. The Chinese are allowing this gold price to go up. They're pushing the gold price to go up. They're allowing the Saudis and the Middle Easterns to push the oil price down. The collective Chinese ownership of America is at an all-time high, and it has surpassed the WASP network cumulative aggregate dollar totals. You know, it's funny because Jim Willie stated this in one of his videos where he had a laundry list of everything in America that the Chinese owned, and he went on and on and on and on. Every major city in America, the Chinese own huge swatches of it, huge patches of it. Detroit, I mean, goodness gracious, they own like 3/4 of Detroit. It's because the financial instruments collapsed on 9/30 and the Chinese held the paper of that instrument and they were able to collect on the collateral, which was hard asset collateral in the United States. Again, that's why a couple weeks ago the visa restrictions were changed for Chinese nationals to bump it up to 10 years, and it used to be only a year or two, right around there. So, yeah, the validation's there, the verification's there. So look forward to more of this in the future, guys. And the gold price being broken out, the oil price is coming down, the United States dollar being at all-time highs before it dies, or is changed over into the Treasury note, are very positive things. These are very good things for everyone. So, okay, yeah, and you know what the funniest thing about it today? I didn't even realize. I looked at the calendar, and it's Pearl Harbor Day. I thought that was non-coincidental, pretty significant, some type of synergy there. So, anyhow, all right, guys, I've talked enough for today. Again, Disinfowars, daily updates for those of you who are not members. The members have known about this stuff prior to it happening way back, even before I made the Georgia Guidestones video. So, all right, thanks, guys. See you.